Okay, there we go. I'm going to turn up the Zoom audio so people who are watching by the stream can hear people on Zoom. So if you're not addressing the group on Zoom, please please mute yourself so that the audience doesn't hear whatever it is in the background. That'd be great. And now let me switch to Zoom so that as the chairman takes it away, that people can see her. That should be good.
Okay, everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the Saturday RPT meeting with James Dickey, our chairman. We're going to be asking him a series of questions after he gives a short, brief introduction. But first, I'd like to acknowledge a few people who've helped put this meeting together. My name is Diana Greenwood, and I'm the chair of the Bastrop County Republican Party. My fellow chair in Travis County, Matt Makoviak, is also a co-host of this event, as well as Jan Duncan and Fernando Trevino, our state Republican Executive Committee members for Senate District 14. Summer Wise, state Republican Executive Committee member for Senate District 24. Lori Granados, president of Central Texas Republican Assembly. Thank you all for co-hosting this with me. And now I'd like to introduce our state chairman, who has done a phenomenal job over the last 2 years. Kind of faced a little bit of adversity when he first got into office, but really rose above that to do an excellent job and raise a tremendous amount of money for our state party, and has been to, I think, pretty much every single county in the entire state, which is again a phenomenal thing to do since we're so large. And that is James Dickey, our state chairman. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair Greenwood. Thank you to Matt Makoviak and a bunch of others. Let me switch the feed here so that we don't get that endless mirror there. Um, wow, thank you to you, Chair Greenwood. Thank you to Chairman Makoviak and CTRA President Lori Granados and our SRC members, Jan Duncan, Fernando Trevino, Summer Wise, who are all also on today. You know, it is really great to have everybody on with us this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in. As Chairwoman said, as chairman, I've been traveling around Texas, usually 4 to 5 days a week, and frequently more, and putting thousands of miles on my car. I mean, I've done nearly 100,000 miles since I've been chair, and so to have that come to a sudden stop and not be able to interact face to face with Republicans around the state, it's been a real change. So it's wonderful to see you guys today, and it's great to be able to give you an update. If you guys don't mind, as we do events and stuff, we typically open either with pledges or prayer or both. If you don't mind, especially at this unprecedented time, I know we've got a lot of folks on. Um, could we take a moment and say a prayer? Would that be all right? Okay.
Yeah.
Lord, thank you so much for this chance to get together. Thank you for this amazing time that we live in when we are able to do so much, even though we are not able to be together in person. We know you are in charge and that all goes according to your will. And we thank you for the wisdom and courage and that you have bestowed. Thank you for putting leadership in place for a time such as this. Thank you for your blessing, your guidance, your wisdom. May we all seek you at this time as at all times. In Jesus' name, amen. Yeah, this pandemic, I mean, it is literally the biggest pandemic in a century. It's not a thing that I ever thought I'd have to deal with as chair. It's not, frankly, anything anyone thought anyone would have to deal with. But it makes me so grateful that we were already so far ahead of the game. we've been focused on delivering victory for November 2020 and delivering that since the day after November 2018. And thankfully, we did so, because if we had not, we would not be in a good place right now. And instead, at this time and with these challenges, I know that we can conquer, because we are united and we are unified. We are prepared. As President Trump says, we are in this together. We've been keeping everybody in communication. We have been updating our grassroots and making sure everybody knows the impact of coronavirus on the Republican Party of Texas and our local and our state conventions, the transitions we've been making from in the field, from in-person efforts to phone and online, and how we at the party are staying laser focused on victory in the November elections. Let me talk for a moment about our local and state conventions. Recently the SREC, the State Republican Executive Committee, met electronically to address two really big issues that affect our grassroots: the state convention and the national convention delegate allocation. And so the SREC voted to move the state convention in Houston from May 14th, 16th to July 16th to 18th. It is looking more and more wise that they did that. And they also voted to allocate our 44 at-large delegates, all using the statewide allocation method under our rules. So um, the original plan was a big chunk of those delegates wouldn't get allocated till our convention, but then since our convention needed to get moved, they changed it so we just allocated everybody per the results of the primary. Both of those votes are going to need to be ratified in an in-person meeting of the SREC. We are going to dot every I and cross every T and make sure we do that exactly right. But because the SREC took those necessary steps, we got approval from the RNC for our plan to make sure we protected our full 155 delegates for the national convention. It's an incredible feat that we were able to move the dates of our state convention. Plans for that convention started over 3 years ago. And for us to be able to do that, move it to a very narrow window, and then to be able to do that with no additional cost to the RPT or to the delegates, it was really incredible work. And I very much applaud the entire team who was involved with that. Both the vote for moving our convention date and the vote to change up the delegate allocation, that's what made it possible for the Republican National Committee, their executive committee, to approve our full delegate allocation. That is so critical because we have the second biggest delegates group in the country, second only to California. RNC rules don't normally allow for material changes in an election year for obvious reasons. They don't want states gaming the system. But because we did everything carefully, because we did it right, and because we got the changes needed for this, we were able to get full approval for that plan to save our delegate allocation. And I'm so thankful to Dr. Robin Armstrong, our national committee man, who actually serves on the executive committee of the Republican National Committee and approved. He was part of the group that unanimously approved that change. I'm seeing Zoom flip back and forth between speakers, and it does that anytime it senses sound from somebody else. So if you would mute yourself if you're not actually asking a question to the body, it'll stop Zoom from doing that back and forth. Thanks. Um, you know, there we go. We've got somebody who's not yet muted. There we go. You know, that delegate protection plan was approved in full by the RNC. That is so important. That's so important because then we avoided all penalties and our full delegate strength is secured for President Trump. And that's nothing to be taken lightly. To give you an idea, the penalty would have dropped our delegate strength from 155 to 9. So it's truly excellent, excellent news. That was a big win for RPT, but that's the road to convention is really just starting. I thanked everybody who followed the steps. Our county chairs, SRC members, our temporary committee chairman, all across our great state who complied with the local emergency declarations and either held their Senate district or county conventions safely because they were able to, or who adjourned their meetings for a later date so that those would take place after May 15th outside the suspension window put out by the CDC. And nearly 300 conventions were postponed in an effort that easily could have come off the rails and instead went perfectly smoothly and efficiently. And so I am so thankful to everyone who was involved in making that happen. Excuse me just a second. I'm gonna switch over here onto Zoom and see if I can't just do a see if I can do a kind of a universal. There we go. All right. So I've just automatically muted everybody, so those background noises that were interesting but a little distracting are no longer on. Our objective is to hold our local and our state conventions in person if at all possible. Now, we're going to continue to scrutinize the progress and as things change through this whole pandemic for the health and safety of our delegates. That is our top priority. We have successfully steered RPT and our conventions through this pandemic, and we're going to continue to do so in full compliance with our rules and with parliamentary procedure, and we're going to make sure we are continue to protect the full rights of our delegates at their local and state conventions. But the thing we are focused on right now is not just getting through all that, but making sure that in November we win for President Trump and Republicans up and down the ballot. The business of the Republican Party of Texas is to elect Republicans to office and so that we can enable the change we want to be. I'm pleased to report that we at the RPT are fully focused on winning for President Trump in November and our Republicans up and down the ballot. We are working around the clock to ensure that Texas delivers its electoral votes for President Trump and that we protect and win back our majorities in Texas this year. We need to keep working together to win together in November 2020. I'm so grateful that we had the vision and foresight to begin our march to victory for 2020 right after the 2018 election. If we had not spent every day since that election preparing for victory this November, we would be in a very difficult position right now. But because we went to work immediately in November 2018 to prepare for November 2020, we are right on track to execute all of our plans in spite of this worst pandemic in a century. Because of the vision and foresight we had and the hard work we put in, we ended 2019 with a record $4.4 million on hand. And for comparison, the party had never had $2 million cash on hand before I became chairman. But we reached at the end of this first quarter of 2020, we reached $4.7 million cash on hand. And just this week, we reached 4.8 million. We are building as we must for victory for this year. And along those lines, we have made the adjustment. We have switched from in-person efforts to phone-based efforts, from in-person training to digital training, all for our field staff. Training is continuing online, and we will continue to work tirelessly to hit all our milestones. Just last Saturday, our victory effort held a day of action. Folks, we had over 150 people across the state on the phones and made 17,000 phone calls to voters in just that single day. You add that to the more than 30,000 calls we had already made over the couple weeks before that, we're looking at 50,000 calls in just the last 3 weeks. We are not letting any grass grow, and we are committed to staying on the right track to win in November. Please join us in doing that. And the easiest way to do that is to join our 10K for 10R program. 10,000 Republicans volunteering to each contact 10 new, each help us register 10 new Republican voters in Texas. And together, 10,000 volunteers, 10 new Republican registrations each, that's 100,000 registrations. Well, we already have 3,400 volunteers. We already have 74,000 registrations. So we are well on our way, but we need you. So if you are not already a volunteer in our 10K for 10R program, please text 10K to the number 72,000, 72000, and we'll get signed up. We'll send you the names and numbers of 10 people that we are 90% sure are hardcore Republican and we are 90% sure are not yet registered to vote in Texas. All you have to do is call them and ask them if we can mail them a voter registration card. And if they say yes, we will take care of mailing them that voter registration card and we will follow up to make sure it happens. We're committed to delivering those electoral college votes to President Trump. He cannot win without Texas's 38 electoral college votes. We are going to deliver those for him in November. We are going to deliver victories for all of our candidates from the White House to the courthouse all across Texas. The Republican Party of Texas is firing on all pistons. We are on the right track to victory in November, and we are on the right track to beat Democrats in November, to protect and hold our majorities in Texas, and to win for President Trump and deliver the electoral college votes from Texas that he needs. We need your help in this mission. Email me at jrdickey@texasgop.org or text 10K to 72,000 and sign up right now to help us register voters and celebrate victory with us on election night in 2020. And now I'll open it up to the team for questions. If you would, those of you who are co-hosts, you can unmute yourself and we can take questions.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. You kind of answered a whole bunch of the questions that I had and that several people had sent to me. I want to thank you first for being here today. This is so great for you to do this for Travis County. As you know, we've got a runoff election coming up for House 47. We've got a ton to do. Is there more that the RPT can help us do? What can we do to start getting out there to get this runoff going? And then we've also got a Senate election, a special election that was supposed to happen, but luckily is going to go in November. And we need to make sure we take over that and not let another Democrat take Kurt Watson's seat. Do you have some suggestions for us?
So a couple of things. First of all, the primary runoff in House District 47. I've been so excited about all of the great candidates who stepped up to run in all 12 of those seats that the Democrats took in 2018. And we have some fantastic candidates who are already our nominees in almost all of those seats. But House District 47 is one of those we want to win back. And there wasn't a clear winner in the primary, so we have a primary runoff. At the party, we are required to be neutral in the primary. So we can't take sides or do anything for one or the other in the runoff. I do encourage even those runoff candidates to be prepared to be the nominee. So each of them should already be working on using WinRed to do their fundraising, making sure that they're coordinating with us on our messaging and the things we are doing, that they are plugged in with us and they can reach out. They certainly should have been long ago using our systems. They should have our Advantage block walking app. They should have our Red Dialer phone banking app. They should be using that Red Dialer app like crazy right now. That's really the best way they can be campaigning right now, is to do phone efforts on campaigning. The other thing that they should be doing is being visible in being leaders in helping the community at this time, right? We have the RPT Serves initiative going right now in this pandemic. I gave blood. We've had people volunteering at food banks. We've had people volunteering other ways. The McCall campaign did a lot of work on that front. We've seen several, the Cornyn campaign I know is very involved in helping in community efforts around the state. So that is a great way that a candidate can be really visible while doing a really good thing. And so I would strongly encourage that they get involved with RPT serves, and then we will just count on the voters to choose that great candidate for us moving forward. Fortunately, the original plan for convention had our convention happening the weekend before early voting started for the runoff, so we weren't going to know who any of the runoff nominees were going to be. And so the good news this time is they both moved, both the runoff and the convention have moved, but the runoff election date is before a couple of days before our general election efforts happen. So I would encourage both those runoff candidates to plan on being at convention and prepare for being at convention. And one of them will be there as our nominee, and the other one I hope will still be there and still be involved.
Yeah, that would be great. Also, I mean, kind of leading into that, and anybody who has any other questions, please put it in the chat room, and so that we can get these questions, any questions you have, answered. Um, we've had, I guess Travis County has been a real focal point for like voter fraud. And so I know that we've done a bunch on the SREC and we've got a committee, but maybe you could tell people a lot about what we do. Fernando and I try to keep them up to date, but you're right there in the middle of it.
Yes, well, and I was talking to a couple of people at the national level at the RNC just last week about our voter defense initiatives, and that is a big deal. And we do have a great voter defense effort going. Excuse me, I'm gonna cough and I'm gonna mute. Wow, sorry about that. Um, the There we go. We have a big voter defense initiative. It's actually an evolution of a thing we did last time, both a direct result of what I learned the hard way as county chair in Travis County. And it's one of the reasons why I am pushing back so hard on the mail in ballots. One of the things the Democrats did the minute we got voter ID, they started pushing to try to encourage all sorts of people to use mail-in ballots because that's the only method of voting that doesn't require voter ID. And in fact, they started doing so much that it's highly unlikely that all of those people that they had encouraging to apply for mail-in ballots were in fact eligible for mail-in ballots. And now, of course, we know we've got those lawsuits. I I've been quoted a lot in the last week. I did an NBC5 interview in Dallas, and I said something to the effect of, there is nothing more secure, no method of voting more secure than you walking in, making your vote, reviewing your vote, and then handing it over and walking out. That is the most secure way to vote. And we want that security for the voters. And then the Wall Street Journal put out an article, and my comment in there is that we're gonna vigorously oppose any attempt by the Democrat to expose voters to increased error and fraud because even the Travis County Democrat election clerk or county clerk who's over all the elections, she said absentee ballot vote by mail is the most prone to error and fraud. And she's right. It is the most prone to error and fraud. And everyone, every fraudulent vote that gets counted disenfranchises a legitimate voter. And we will vigorously oppose that. So yeah, that is a great one. That's a big one. We have our voter defense team. We're going to be working on training lawyers. We're going to be working on training poll watchers. We're going to be working on helping to recruit alternate judges. That's a big deal for us. And the early voting ballot board, improving training and improving recruiting in all of the major counties. We're going to be rolling that out. And we did talk to Secretary of State's office. They are doing a good job validating citizenship of folks on the roll. So that's a big deal.
Oh, excellent. I think Matt had a question for you next. Matt, are you still on?
Yeah, I was going to ask about mail as well. But I'll switch to this. James, you talked about the financial health of the party right now, and that's tremendous credit to you and the finance director and all your major donors that have supported your vision and your work. And it is an incredibly important point that if we weren't as strong in 2019, what a really financial disaster we'd be looking at in 2020 for the election. I'm curious if you could talk about how victory's doing and what the rest of the financial goals are for the rest of the 2020 election year.
Absolutely. So, a couple of things on that front. First of all, we've got $4.8 million in hand. 2.5 million of that is dedicated victory funds, which means it's dedicated to general election efforts to beat Democrats in November. And over 1.5 million of that is dedicated to field staff. And I said our field staff's been doing a great job switching over. But what I didn't say is we already have 50 field staffers working. And to give everybody comparison, that is more than double the peak we had at the last 2 cycles combined. And it's nowhere near our goal for this time. Many of you would remember seeing Governor Abbott's staff around last time, and he had the biggest staff by far. At his peak in November 2018 or October of 2018, he had 140 paid field staff around the state. Our goal has been to have 280 by June. Now, obviously, this coronavirus thing is affecting our plans and hiring, and it's a lot harder to interview people right now. So we might have a little bit of delay, but our plan is to have well more than double what even Governor Abbott had in the state very, very soon. Lori, did you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to know what the party was doing statewide to help us improve election integrity by training enough poll workers. Um, One idea I had was talking to the various state agency and trying to get state employees to agree to take the election day off or at least something like that, and then they treat them the way they do when they're on jury duty. It's a little bit different, but I know it's really hard for us to come by people who are willing to volunteer and be there during early voting. And now with the virus, that's going to complicate things even more. Can you tell us what the party's doing statewide?
Yes. So we're doing a lot in. Oh shoot! Sorry, I got that camera effect again. We are doing a lot to help on election integrity, recruiting, and training. So a couple of things. First of all, related. There was a question about whether poll watchers whether they have to be registered voters in the county. I believe they do, but at the very least, they have to have been appointed either by a campaign or by the county chair. And so, one of the things we're working on is updating our poll watcher training and expanding that. And I know the team, Dawn Elliott, chairs our voter defense team, and I know she's hard at work and her team is hard at work making sure that's available. Um, Judges and clerks have to be a registered voter within the county that they are serving in. And I know as a former county chair, when you're already dealing with running the party and you're already dealing with the election, it's a big challenge to also be able to fill all of those election worker spots. It's tough enough in the primary. It is really tough in the general, but that is a big priority for us, especially in the urban counties in the general. And so we've got a couple of people on the staff at RPT who are already starting to make plans for rolling that forward and being able to help county chairs in the urban areas in particular make sure we've got sufficient alternate judges and clerks who are watching out for that and poll watchers. And so all of that is a thing. And I love your idea, Lori, that if we could encourage our state elected officials to encourage their staffs to volunteer as they have volunteered in all sorts of other efforts for the state and for the good of the state, I think it would make a lot of sense. Let's see. So, let's see. We got a question. Well, we already answered the question about poll watchers. Online classes, yes. So, a question about training attorneys. I don't know whether we can do an online class, but last time we actually did have an attorney, election law expert attorney, who traveled around the state, and we did 6 different locations and trained attorneys on where they actually qualified for continuing education credit to learn about how to address the how to become election law experts so that they'd be available for us if we need them on election day. And that was very successful. And we are looking at working with True the Vote and some others. I know TPBF has a major voter defense initiative that they are working on. And so we'll complement all of that. And one of the things is we were talking to Attorney General Paxton. He has really stepped up vote fraud prosecution. And in fact, when he came in, I think he told me he had one attorney dedicated to that. He doubled that very quickly, and he got approval in this most recent budget to double it again. So he's got significant uptake and has already prosecuted many times what anybody had been able to prosecute before on vote fraud. And so that is a priority for the Attorney General to handle on the back end. It's our priority to avoid it on the front end. And so we'll be doing all of that. But that as a prior election clerk, alternate judge, election judge, early voting ballot board volunteer, and a worker, and county chair, this is a thing that I know all too well, and or I know as I should, and because of that, it's very important to me, and we put a lot of attention on it. Jan.
Okay, I think actually Summer had a question for you next.
Okay.
I do, yes. Chairman, with our convention now in July, our timeline from the convention to the general election is going to be compressed. And so I wanted to ask what challenges you see that are going to be presented before us with that, and also what opportunities we may have or advantages that we have with a convention closer to the November election, and how you see us seeing through to victory in November with this new timeline.
Oh, what a great question, and that is one of the challenges. I mean, on the downside, we've got a handful of people who are in runoffs, and we won't know who our nominees are in those races until mid-July. That's a little bit of a challenge. It's also a challenge in county parties where there's going to be a transition, and the transition isn't smooth, because the county chairs and precinct chairs take office 20 days after the primary runoff finishes. And the primary runoff's now mid-July, so the beginning of those new terms is late July. So obviously, if those folks are starting from scratch late July, they're going to be behind the eight ball. And so I certainly hope that in counties where we've got transitions, that they're working together well and bringing people up to speed. I mean, I hope they use the opportunity to work alongside each other and have some mentorship and big coordination. But from our standpoint, from the state convention part, holy smokes, mid-July, that is 90 days before early voting starts for November. And so that is no time at all, which is why it is my emphasis has been November is coming. We have to be prepared to win. We have been, because we have been working so hard. I mean, most people don't realize we couldn't even win, these 12 seats that we're going to win back in the state house. We couldn't win in those if we didn't have great candidates in those. The deadline for filing for those candidates is not now, it was last December. We had to be working way ahead of time to make sure we're ready. And thank God we have been, and have been doing all the work. That's why I'm so glad we're ahead on voter registration. We're ahead on fundraising. We really, really had to be. We are going to be going full speed ahead by the time we get to July. And so my hope is that the July convention is just an amazing celebration and encouragement. I mean, people are excited for President Trump. We are excited to deliver victory for him and all of the rest of our nominees down the ballot. And so my hope is that really that convention in July is a rally. And frankly, between you and me, we've been pushing for a while that it would be great if actually there was a rally around convention. So we will see. But what it is for us, it is a kickoff to our last quarter, our last 90 days for our march to victory. And we are going to be already running at full speed for that. It's going to culminate in an amazing victory on election night, and I cannot wait. Great question, though.
Thank you.
That's what we need to be thinking about.
Chairman, I
Yes.
actually have a question from one of my constituents.
Okay.
And they want to, it's one of our precinct chairs, and they want to know about the GOP database. One of the things that they have noticed with it is when they go on there, they'll see Democrats listed in there that they know are Democrats. And they have found quite a bit of incorrect information. So it's a kind of a little bit complicated right now to update it. How are we going to change that over the next term?
Yeah, that's been one of the challenges we've been dealing with actually at the RPT for a while now, because the RNC updates and does a lot of refresh and modeling from all of the contexts. One of the big things we had to push was to encourage all candidates and all volunteers to be using our systems. So not just a one-way feed of GOP data to them, but using Advantage, using Red Dialer, and making updates and indications in there. That's really, really important. Now, on the other hand, we've been pushing the RNC to give us the latest and greatest data over and over. So we've actually run into cases where we felt like we gave them better data and then it got overwritten. So we are still figuring that out. We have excellent data people though. Keith Kazai, who's our data director at the RPT, he has been working on this and getting better and better ever since he started last January. And he came from a background of working campaigns in the field. So he is very sensitive to making sure that that they are responsive to those. What we have done is spread the use of those tools around. So we've had hundreds more campaigns and candidates using them. We've been using them more through all our efforts. We have really held our data vendors' feet to the fire. And we have also done a lot of texting and similar efforts. And so we've bought a lot of cell phone numbers that we've tested and confirmed and updated and put in there. So I know for a fact that our data is better than it has ever been. I also know that it will never be perfect because it's a constantly moving target. And the best thing we can do is update, update, update. And the best way to do that is to use it. But great question and thank you. But I know for sure our vendors have been having to up their game, and then we've been pushing them in ways that most states really, really haven't.
Sorry, I was still muted. To kind of lead into that, do you think that the change in the straight party ticket or straight party voting is going to make a difference in this next election?
Yeah. That is a great question, and it's going to make some difference for sure. And so here, the idea and the plan around changing for straight ticket voting is that the eliminating straight ticket voting would eliminate one day wipeouts where you have dozens of people who lose their position, in the same day and not necessarily related they do personally, right? So it is highly unlikely that the Harris County judge, who was very well liked and very well respected, and lost to somebody nobody knew, that would have happened if not for straight ticket voting on the Democrat side, delivering his opponent the victory. So eliminating straight ticket voting can eliminate that kind of a thing where you have losses that are really just fallout. They're really just carryover from another initiative. But a lot of research into straight ticket voting says that having it, not having it, doesn't dramatically change. It doesn't flip states. You don't have states that were Democrat that go Republican or vice versa if you eliminate straight ticket voting. And Texas was one of only 8 states that had straight ticket voting left. There are only 7 now that have straight ticket voting left. A practical impact for us is it can help us a lot down ballot in urban areas in particular, especially if we've got great candidates who are going to work hard. we've got a chance to break through in areas that we haven't been able to break through before. So that's a great thing. Another practical impact is, especially in urban areas where we have dozens of races on the ballot, we need to plan and prepare for it to take longer for those votes to happen. And we will need to be training people to go all the way down, to not stop at the top, to make sure they work all the way down and support all of our candidates on the ballot. We can and will do that. That's not a thing that it's practical to do now. The people who most need that training would forget it between now and November. So we need to save that for that last 90 days. That's when we need to be pushing that message. But for all of us, know that what it'll do is avoid collateral losses, but it also gives us a chance to break through some wins, especially in the urban counties.
I think Fernando had a question for you.
Yeah, so I've got a question, and obviously wanted to make a statement about, nobody's home office setup is maybe more self-conscious other than Chairman Dickey's because he's got like the whole thing going for him. And it's awesome. But one thing I wanted to ask about was, I think obviously we've all seen that the party was much more involved in the legislative process last session than pretty much we've ever been. Having worked in the legislature in the past, like I can't ever remember a time that we've seen the chairman there so often or SREC members so engaged in the process. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you think, we've learned from this last session? What are some things that we can do going into, the next election, obviously the session after that,
Right.
to be successful? It's not just, the priorities that we've got, but obviously, redistricting and a whole lot of other big things that will be coming up. Just be curious to hear what you think we learned and, what we can do to, be more successful this next year.
Great question, and that was, one of my goals in running to be chair was to make sure the party was more impactful, and that's more impactful in getting people elected, and then more impactful in getting the accomplishments we hope to have with those elected officials. And in the 2017 legislative session, regular session, you're right, the state party testified twice. In the 2019 session, we testified over 300 times combined. And it did matter. We had dozens more bills passed that address our platform. We had 49 of our platform planks directly solved, that our goals reached in dozens of our platform planks already in that one session. Now, what it showed a couple of things. One, it showed, yep, we know the steps, we know what to do, and we can do that, and we can have an impact when we do. The other thing I think it showed is that we need to build relationships. There were plenty, far too many elected officials that I went in and spoke with who said, the party had never really been impactful in their race and had never been involved with them in any kind of a positive way. And that gave me a chance to talk to them about our data and our systems and all of the other work that we're doing and our work towards the election. And so our work with elected officials and candidates and nominees in this cycle, in this election, it's going to matter in two ways. One, it's going to matter because we're going to deliver more victories. But two, it's going to matter because we'll have built up a relationship and already had that interaction, so that when we go to them and say, remember, we have this shared principles, and here's a priority we'd like to deliver, that we'll be more likely to achieve those. And that really is a win-win. It's a virtuous cycle that we began in the regular session in 2019, and we have a chance to build on dramatically this time. That was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank you, Chairman, for all you did at the last legislative session. I mean, I know I was down there a lot, and every time I turned the corner, you were in a hallway somewhere or in the chambers and testifying, and it was great. And I think a lot of people don't realize that this is not something we had in the past. We didn't have the legislative priorities and we didn't have committees, and our chairmen were the only ones allowed to speak. And so, what you've done in moving us forward and giving the RPT and giving the SREC and other grassroots people even the opportunity to go down and teach us how to testify and you be there yourself. I think it's great. And the more we can do, I really do appreciate that. I'm hoping the questions, I think we're kind of running out.
Well, while we take a minute for that, this is a great time for me to talk about RPT serves again. Please, everybody who's listening, go to Facebook and do a search for RPT serves. You'll find our RPT serves group. Join that group. We've got great suggestions on ways you can help. You know, the last time we activated RPT serves was after Hurricane Harvey, and that was unbelievable devastation, but it was also an amazing time where Texans were able to stand up for and with fellow Texans. And as Republicans, that's what we believe in. We believe in personal responsibility. We believe that the first line of defense is not government, but it is individuals. And RPT serves as a chance for us to live that out. And we did it after Hurricane Harvey. It was amazing. The stories were incredible, the photos were incredible, and the experiences were incredible of Texans who could help, helping Texans who needed help. Well, we've got the same thing right now. This has affected all of us to some extent, but some much more than others. And while the devastation's not nearly as visible and it's not nearly as concentrated geographically, it still exists. And those of us who can help, please do help. I did so to kick it off. I went down and gave blood again, and I will be doing that again. I know we have a lot of people who've done food banks. I know we've got a lot of people who have stayed in touch with people who are shut in, um, people in care homes, elderly folks who can't get out. They've helped deliver groceries to the neighbors. There's a lot of ways we can help. Please do what you can to do that. And so there's that. And then volunteering for our campaigns. While we can't do in person campaigning, there's a lot you can do online and on the phone. So please, whether either sign up for 10K for 10R, go to texasgop.org, fill out the form, or text 10K to 72,000. We'll get you signed up for that if you haven't already, or contact one of the campaigns, one of the many great campaigns we've got going. I've mentioned the McCall campaign. Around here, we've got the Chip Roy's campaign. You know, he's facing Wendy Davis, and he's focused on leading and serving in Congress, and she's focused on raising money and trying to beat him. And so, we've got a lot of races like that all around Texas, but even all around central Texas. Please pick one, get involved. It is a great, great thing to do.
Okay. And yeah, I'm on. Sorry. Will sent in a really good question. I was trying to read the whole thing. Not sure if you can see his question on chat.
Oh yeah, so that was around election integrity. We did, and voter defense. We addressed a whole lot of that already, and we have a great team that is getting to work on that. And we are going to have lawyers available to make sure that that does get followed.
Several people have asked about when the state can give us the dates of the state convention again.
Sure. So state convention is going to be July 16th through the 18th. So it's July through the 18th. There'll be the general meetings, and then we'll have temporary committee meetings that Monday through Wednesday, the 13th through the 15th. And so we'll have one temporary committee member from every Senate district. And if you're interested in being appointed to that, reach out to your SREC members, and they are the ones who pick. They can only that each of the SREC members can recommend one person from their Senate district for each of the 5 committees they can recommend, and then and then we'll have a temporary Senate district caucus chair. We'll have a temporary congressional district caucus chair. But it's going to be an amazing convention. It is going to be fantastic. And so, yeah, please do come and be involved. It is going to be fantastic. We are going to be opening registration a couple more times. Now we know most of the people have not had their local convention yet. So most people don't know yet if they're going to be delegates or alternates. But the reality is, you have people like me who've been delegates every convention for the last 10 years. Delegates or alternates. I've been alternate a couple of times. Um, and so we actually have a way to register to just say, you're going to be a prospective alternate or a prospective delegate, in that you hope to run for it but you haven't been elected yet. Go ahead and register, go ahead and come. I can say firsthand, I was an alternate delegate to state more than once, and each of those times I ended up being an alternate delegate to a national convention. So
Okay. Which was great. And I believe our Senate District Convention is May 30th. If I quote that wrong, Matt, you can tell me. Diana, when is yours again? May 16th?
Well, we're hoping May 16th. It may be a little bit later now that the schools have closed. One of my convention committee people is looking into other locations at this time.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Well, yeah, one of the advantages of doing that, move to the call of the chair is that, it and one of the reasons why we really squeezed ourselves, right? So we first of all, it was miraculous to be able to get a date this late. But we squeezed the state operation so that we don't need the names of the delegates until June 27th. So the state, county and Senate district conventions have a much bigger window to be able to have their meetings. And we already have a team of people. I've got a little task force working on contingency plans, and we'll be taking the steps necessary so that we can do contingency plans if we need to. Again, for a whole lot of reasons, we hope that we're able to have in-person conventions just at a later time than they were originally planned, but we are going to make sure we've got all the contingencies covered.
Right. And Tim had wanted to know when the national convention was.
That is going to be in August. It's August 24th through the 27th. It had always been planned for August. That gave us some safety. It also gave a great contrast on the Democrat side, where theirs was originally for June and they just had to move it to August. So that's been kind of fun to see.
So, well, I'm not really seeing a lot more questions. If anybody has any, we can get them in real quick. But otherwise, we're kind of coming up on an hour. And I don't want to take up too much. I know you've got a lot still going on this weekend.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you to, everybody who's done this. Thank you, Lori, for putting this on through CTRA. And, all of my SREC colleagues for being here. And Chairman, I really would like to say thank you to you, and please say thank you to your wife. I know with Mother's Day coming up, Linda does so much for us, and it's so nice to have her, be part of this and always be behind you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you all very much. And thank you for joining us. And thanks for being a part of what makes the Republican Party of Texas so special and so great. I tell people all the time, it is our volunteers that is our secret weapon, and that does make us so impactful. And that's one of the reasons why I love the 10K for 10R initiative. We are going to have the biggest volunteer army we have ever had, and it's going to make a difference, and it's going to make a difference all the way down the ballot. We are marching together to victory in November. Can't wait to see you guys the next chance. God bless you. God bless Texas.
We will see you in July. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.